All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Today we were going to talk about navigating the front-end tools in Visual Studio. There's a lot to look at. And really when I started digging into this, I've been preparing this for about a month, and a couple things that I found out. Number one, there's probably about 4 parts worth of material, and so we might get through part 1 today if we're lucky. The other thing is, in all my trial runs, I tested it on my family and made them sit through the presentation several times, and not once did we make it through all the way and actually have it work. So I don't know if it's going to turn out or not. So we'll do what we can to get through some of these tools. There was a hiccup every single time, so I don't expect anything different. To start with, the web has gotten complicated. I don't know if anybody's noticed that. Anybody want to disagree with that? Michael? No? Not at all. Okay. In the beginning, we had HTML. Then we added CSS and JavaScript along the way. And for many, many years, that was it. We had HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then lately, it's gone a little bit crazy. We have ES6, ES7, ES2015, Babel, TypeScript, CoffeeScript, every kind of script, NPM, Bower, Node.js, Express, Kestrel, Grunt, Gulp, Browserify, Webpack, System.js, CommonJS, Require.js, CSS Next, Less, Sass, Stylus, jQuery, Angular 1, 2, React.js, Flux, Redux.js, Hint, and all those things, and probably 30 more things that came out just today while we were sleeping. So it's crazy. It's a crazy landscape out there. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's hard to keep up on all of it. But it's good, and a lot of this is come to pass because of major improvements in the browser's JavaScript rendering engines. That's a big chunk of it. V8, Chrome V8 came out, I don't know how many years ago that was, but after that there's just been this flood of things happening in that space. And I think it's good in some ways. In some ways it's I don't know, maybe not good, maybe it's crazy, I guess is the right thing to do, is to describe that. But I think there's improvements coming there, and things are changing. So let's dig in and see how far we can get. So in today's agenda, these are the things that I hope that we can get through. So to start with, how many people have used like VS Code or Atom or anything like that? Some of these lightweight editors, Sublime or WebStorm or whatnot. So I was going to take a look at, just briefly, Visual Studio Code has really come along nicely, and it's pretty close to on par, I think, with Atom and Sublime and some of those. In some ways, it has other features that are really nice. I don't know if you've noticed lately, but they added this extensions button here, which makes it really nice and easy to find extensions and add it to Visual Studio Code. But what I wanted to look at briefly was using it. It's a lightweight editor. It comes up really, really quickly. It installs. It runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux, and maybe even some other places. But so let's say I wanted to make an HTML page. One thing you'll notice is I have to do a lot of typing. It's nice that it's lightweight. It does give me syntax highlighting. But let's say I wanted to put a head in there. If you wanted to autocomplete for you, if you hit tab, just kind of like the property snippets do in Visual Studio, it will complete that for you. So let's say I want to add body here. And there may be some things I don't know about this, so if anybody knows something that I don't know that would make life better, let me know. So like if I want to do, whoops, sometimes that doesn't work. Okay, there we go. Hello world. Let's say I wanted to do something like this. H2, and this one's going to have a class of, I don't know, title. If I hit tab, it doesn't really know what to do there. It doesn't quite work right. If I hit tab there, it just tabs. So I have to close that myself. So I think WebStorm is actually one of the best at that. Does a pretty good job. But Visual Studio Code, it's okay.
Close that.
Yeah, see? It's easy to make those little mistakes. I mean, it will prompt you, but you have to do a lot of work. So it's not bad. It's a pretty good editor. Like I said, it's lightweight and works pretty well. But I wanted to compare that just with Visual Studio proper. A lot of people are think that they'd be better off in another tool just for the front end, like Atom or Visual Studio Code or Sublime. But actually, Visual Studio itself, I keep going back to that because even though it takes about 30 seconds longer to start up than Visual Studio Code, once you're in it, the productivity there is really good. So let's go ahead and create a new project. And let's call this one Delete Me.
So, one note on the code, you can download extensions for it.
Yeah, there are extensions.
That'll help to give you some of that feature.
Do you know of a specific one that will let you do that?
I don't know.
I couldn't find one, but it doesn't mean it's not there. There's already thousands of extensions for Visual Studio Code, and I haven't had a chance to try them all. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, huh? How do you make this go away?
I think you were supposed to have written one in order to get this presentation.
Probably. Yeah, I wrote one, and they rejected it because it destroyed it. So, all right. So before we dig into here, there are a couple things in Visual Studio proper. There are a lot of extensions as well, and I would highly recommend that when you search the extensions, tools and extensions for Visual Studio, just look for anything that says Mads Christensen on it and just install it because it's really good. I mean, anybody? Yeah, right. So he's got a lot of extensions, but there's one that he just created recently called the Web Extension Pack, and the Web Extension Pack it's a bundle of a bunch of extensions that he's built in the past. So if you just download Web Extension Pack, you'll get all of these things in here. Add new file, bundler, minifier, glyph friend, image optimizer, so on and so forth. And we'll look at a couple of those.
And you're not talking about NuGet package, right? You're talking about the extensions.
Visual Studio extensions, yeah.
Doesn't he do Web Essentials?
He does Web Essentials, and if you'll look at the bottom there, Web Essentials is included in the Web Extension Pack now. So it's just one piece of it. But all right, so one of the cool extensions that he adds in the Web Extension Pack is called Add New File. So this is really cool. If you hit Shift F2, you can just add a file. So we're just going to add an index.html. And
whoa, you know a shortcut?
Shut up, Tom. I learned one shortcut, okay? Mr. Keyboard Guy. Just kidding. So it's really cool. It lets you quickly add files without having to go file, add new, and search for the template. All right, so we've got this in here. So if I do an H1, I didn't have to hit tab or anything. It auto-closed that for me. And then we'll say, let's go to H2, and I want a class equals title or something like that. It still closes it for me. Okay, so all right. So let's run this. Hey, you want to mute them? All right, so it works. Yay. What's that?
In a submarine. Submarine.
Yeah, that's beautiful. All right. So you can see that it's really cool. If I wanted to change this, if I just type div, it changes the closing tag for me. So a lot of those little tiny features like that really add up to make it more productive to use. All right, enough of that. You working on that?
I can't mute him.
There, I took care of it. I have to do everything. Is there a mute all button? I don't know. It's fine. All right, enough of that. Okay. What's going on here? Yes, I know. All right, next thing. So what are we going to look at next? Okay, so believe me when I say that working in Visual Studio with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it's a first-class experience, and it's a good place to work. So you don't have to avoid it. And drop into some lightweight third-party editor. You can get all of your work done here, and it's actually pretty good. Let's see. Let's just talk about Node.js real quick. Who can tell me what Node.js is in a nutshell?
JavaScript running on the server.
JavaScript running on the server. Yeah, that's probably a pretty good description of that. What engine does it run for the JavaScript engine? Yes?
Google's engine.
It does run V8.
Right, sorry, yeah, Chrome's.
Yeah, it runs the V8 engine, but there's also another one. Anybody else know what other engine it can run? Yeah?
Run Chakra.
Chakra, yeah, it can run Chakra as well. And that'll be kind of interesting. And I think it's actually a good sign that's happening, because I think that will open up the space to be able to substitute other engines in there in the future, so that we wouldn't have to rely solely on just V8. We could use Chakra, we could use maybe SunSpider in the future or something like that. There's a lot of different engines that could be placed in there. But Node's pretty significant. One of the important things that it opens up for us is the ability to run JavaScript on the server. But even if you don't run Node.js as a server, as a web server itself, it's pretty significant because it's the engine that drives a lot of the tooling these days. So that was out of order. And when you install Visual Studio 2015 all the way up through Update 3, you automatically, if you select the box to get external web tools installed, it'll automatically install Node.js and NPM and Git and a handful of other things. I think Bower, but I'm not sure on Bower, gets installed. So I wanted to look at that really quickly. Sometimes people run into issues like when Visual Studio 2015 first came out, it installed kind of an old version of Node.js and NPM. And in that old version, has anybody used that before, that version in Visual Studio to pull down packages? So if you use NPM to pull down packages and you use the one built into Visual Studio, sometimes you will see that the package structure that gets pulled down is a little goofy. Like the old version would nest things out to like 600 folders deep, and Windows doesn't really like that. Really, no one likes that, but Windows hates that a lot. But I don't know about you, I hate clicking through 600 levels deep of folders. So the problem is then someone would say, oh, that's a really easy fix, go out and get the new version of Node and NPM, download it and install it. And you do that, and you would install that to a global location in your programs file. But you'd go back to Visual Studio and you would still have the same problem. That is because Visual Studio installs their into this place. If you go to Tools, External Tools, that's not the one. Tools, Options. Let's see if we can find this. Projects and Solutions, and this will save you a lot of time because this will drive you absolutely crazy. If you go to External Web Tools. Here's the location of the external tools, and you'll see by default, Visual Studio puts it into its install directory under a folder called Web External. And so what would happen is you would be running a different version of Node.js and NPM when you're using Visual Studio as opposed to the one that you installed globally. And you wouldn't be able to figure out why is it behaving the way that it is. So if you come into this folder here, you can add the locations of Node.js proper and bypass the one that gets installed with Visual Studio. Or you can go to the folder where that's installed and update it to the latest version. So that's just a little tip there that'll make you not pull your hair out. All right, so let's do that. So I'm going to add, let's see, first let's do Bower. So if I just add a Bower JSON file, right? What Bower gives you is this, you get this JSON file that lets you pull in dependencies. So anybody used Bower in here before? Bower, there's a few of you. So if I were to add, so my web page right now, my index.html page is pretty bland. So I want to bring in Bootstrap. I mean, we've all done that, right? How would you normally bring in Bootstrap? You'd probably go out to getbootstrap.com, click on the download link, download a zip file, unzip it into a location, pull the distribution dependencies out, and put it into your project. Bower lets you do that a little bit differently. So I can just type bootstrap, and it goes out and tells me what the latest stable version is, and I say I want that version. As soon as I hit save, in the background here, you can see that it's Bower is doing something. And if I show all files, I have a new folder called Bower Components. It brought Bootstrap down for me. There's a distribution folder, there's the CSS. So if I just say I want the bootstrap min.css, drag it up here, now it has a reference to that. If I hit save, and let's add a little something. Now if we run our web page, looks a little bit better. It's got some styling, there's some centering, there's some default bootstrap stuff out of the box. So this works for lots of different packages. So Bower is basically a package manager for the web. Similar to NuGet for C#, you can go out there and search for all kinds of packages. If I want to bring in jQuery or Angular or React or whatever I want to bring in, I can simply type it in here and grab those things. In Visual Studio, with the web extension pack, I can also right-click on the project, and there's this thing called Quick Install Package. I can do the same thing here. So let's say I wanted to add, I don't know, Font Awesome. Actually, Font Awesome's, is that no, let's just say jQuery. So it kind of does the same thing, but it lets you switch between a lot of different package managers. So Bower's one of them. There's JSPM, NPM. You can even get NuGet packages this way, TypeScript definitions and typings through this little utility in tool. So it makes it really simple to do quick installs of packages. So I'm not going to install that one. There's another package manager that is becoming very popular, or probably is more popular, and that is NPM. So the Node package manager is kind of, I don't know, I think right now it's probably the #1 package manager. That'd be safe to say. And it's superseded. I mean, Bower was all the rage like 4 months ago, but that's so 4 months ago, because NPM's the thing today. And so at least NPM should be for the foreseeable weeks until something else comes out. So it works kind of the same way. Its file is called package.json. And you'll see that it automatically put dev dependencies in here for me. Dev dependencies are those utilities that you download through NPM that you need just for development. They're not necessarily going to end up in your HTML file or your project. And a good example of that would be like Gulp. I suck. So I'll say Gulp, and let's add some regular dependencies, and let's get Bootstrap from NPM instead. That didn't work. How come that didn't work? What did I do? What did I do wrong, David? One more time. I don't know what I did wrong there. This is what I'm talking about. With my family, I did this. Okay, so I hit save on that. Hopefully that'll work. And let's look at our hidden files. So Bower brought all of its components into a Bower components folder. Node brings all of its components into a Node modules folder. And you can see it brought a whole lot of stuff. That's all for Gulp. And I don't think my dependencies is working correctly. So I'm going to cheat. We'll bring it in as a dev dependency. And it's not working there either.
I think it was there.
You think it was in there? Oh, it is. You just can't see it because there's too much stuff. All right. I'll go back. You worry because, I mean, can you spell dependencies correctly? Oh, seriously? Sometimes that gets in your way, doesn't it? No, it doesn't. It's not working on that. Sometimes it does, and usually it does. I don't know why. I've broken something, so it's no longer working. But all right, good enough. So that is another package manager, npm. Now npm does a lot more than just package management. It allows you to create scripts and stuff like that, but I don't know how to do all that stuff yet, so I'm still learning. By the way, I didn't make this disclaimer at the beginning. I don't know these tools all that well either. I know enough to get by, but I'm no expert. We have experts in the room like Polson and Jasper. They're the front end experts. I just play one on TV. So okay. Okay, we looked at Bower, npm, looked at the external web tool settings. Let's look at less real quick. So these are CSS pre-compilers. Who uses any kind of CSS pre-compiler? Dan does. A couple of you. Anybody used Sass or Less or Stylus? What's that? So I don't know Sass real well. I don't know Less real well. So I'm just going to, let's add a folder in here. And we'll call this, just put it in app and content / CSS. And I'm going to just call main.css. Okay, so we'll add a file. So actually I wanted less, didn't I? Somebody's not paying attention. Main.less. Less, not LES. Muscle memory, what can I say? Okay, so as part of the web extension packet, there was something in there called web compiler. So if I write some less real quick, which I'm not going to do in front of you because it's pretty embarrassing. So I'm just going to copy out some stuff that I did in another project and paste it in. So in here you'll see that I've got a variable called main color. I have another variable called nice blue, which is it references main color. One that's called light blue, that's main color plus #333, and then all this kind of stuff.
How does that plus work?
How does the plus work? I don't know. It lightens it somehow. It's kind of magic. We'll take a look here and see how that turns out. I'm going to go ahead and compile that. So if I right-click on that and do web compile and hit compile file, I will get an unrecognized input in main.less. Why? What did I do wrong? This is not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to just work.
I think you're not supposed to have the semicolons.
Your comments.
Aren't your semicolons supposed to be common?
Doesn't like H1. Isn't a valid HTML tag. Well, that's news to me. What's that? I know, it doesn't like that. Undeclared variable. Does that look undeclared to anybody? Doesn't that look like I declared it there? Who's my less expert?
Don't you have to bar it or something like that?
In less?
No, there's something about it.
It works on line 2.
I know, it works on line 2, but it doesn't work on line 3. That's goofy. All right, fine. Let's do this. Are you happier about that?
What if your copy paste brought in
Some goofiness.
Yeah, like,
Microsoft, something like
what are those queries you have up there?
So, yeah, you get little peaks in there at the color. So when you It's a nice little feature. So you can adjust the color there. It's got a color picker right in line in your last file. I don't know why it's not working. It's really unhappy with me. What should I do? Should I delete it and start over? Crap. I told you there's going to be problems. We'll call it not main.less. That should make it happy, right? Let's pick a nice color. Pound.
I like the main site section. Code is fine.
What's that?
The main site code is fine.
Nice. I don't remember. What else do I have in there? Oh, let's start Gospel Library. Seriously.
Force it out of it.
I could do that. We'll just do this. That should be enough to demonstrate what we're looking for. I don't know why it didn't copy and paste, but it's really bizarre.
I've seen that before with copy paste. Just the bytes don't match.
It says light blue, but that's not really light blue, isn't it? That's funny. All right, let's just try that much and see what happens. Try the web compiler. Let's compile it. There we go. It created a main.css and a not main.css and a not main.min.css. So let's go back to full screen. What am I clicking on? There we go. Okay, good one. So I've saved that. Let's go back to our index.html. Let's just drag that puppy up there for now. Let's run it. And this should really make it nice and pretty.
Where's the light blue?
The light blue is the light purple.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those games. Did you ever see that game where it says the color says green but it's in red and the red one is in blue and the blue one? It's like that. Jim, okay. Just for that.
You're not going to document your code. You need to name your variables better.
Jim's name goes on the board.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So the less compiler is pretty cool. There's some more. It added this thing called compiler.json on here, and if you go into here, you can tell it to enable this compile on build, and it'll associate it with your build process. That's cool.
It works fine until you check it into source.
Oh, is that right? What happens when you check it into source?
So when you try to pull it back out, it keeps it as read only, and so you have to keep them checked out.
Check them out. Makes sense. Okay. It's good to know. Minor nuisance. And I suppose you could probably exclude that file, and then it won't check it in, and then you could, it won't be under source control. That'd be one way to get around that. All right, let's look at Gulp real quick. So using these package managers to bring things in, that's all nice, but you don't normally want to, because you're not going to ship it this way with your reference to Bower components. So one thing that we'll do oftentimes is we'll use a task runner to pull in. So what I want to do is use a task runner to pull the CSS from the Bower components folder and drop it into my CSS folder. And then maybe later we would want to concatenate it and minify it and do a whole bunch of other stuff to it. So although what's his name, Mads includes one of those things in his extensions. I think he has a bundler and a minifier. You could use that one, I guess, but I want to use a more modern approach and try to use Gulp instead. And this isn't going to go well, so hang with me. I just know it. I'm going to hit Shift F2, and I'm going to add a Gulp file.js. So, and you'll notice Mads does this on all of his stuff, because after a while it's kind of hard to tell one .json file or .js file from another. So he puts these little icons in here, which is really super nice. So when you're flipping back and forth between that, oh, I'm in a Bower file. Okay, I'm in a Gulp file. Mads Christensen with his extensions. This is all his power pack of extensions, does all these cool stuff. All right, so the other thing that I installed with this, Mads you can tell I like Mads Christensen because he's done all this great work. Yeah.
I was going to say, I went to a conference once where I met the guy, and he says he uses these tools as a way of, if the community likes it, it'll get into Visual Studio.
Right.
So if there's a lot of community adoption, that's how it gets in.
Yeah, so he's awesome. So one of the things I installed was the Gulp snippet pack, and if all went well, it should help me. So I'm going to say Gulp task and hit tab. Oh, yes, it worked. And I'm going to put a default task in there. I don't know why, just because I felt like it. And I'm going to do one called copy CSS. And sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. So let's see what happens. I need a source. Yeah, see that one? I don't know why that one. So this is what I have to do. This is weird. I don't know why that snippet doesn't work. I need to let him know. But if I come down outside of that function, it works, and then I can paste it in. So for my source, let's see where are we at. I want to go into Bower components / bootstrap / dist / CSS.
Can you drag it?
I don't think so. You want me to try it? It's going to mess everything up. You guys don't care. Yeah, see, look what it does. I guess I could just copy that much of it.
You didn't try inside of Lotus.
Because you're not being recorded, and you don't have to worry about looking stupid. This is for posterity. So my children can go on YouTube and laugh at me. Dad, you're an idiot. I know. All right. So what do I want to put inside that pipe? I want to move this thing, right? So I'm going to do gulp dest. Yes, that worked. Sometimes this stuff works. Yeah, I'll have to get rid of that in a minute. Or I'll do it now. Okay. And where do I want to put it? I want to put it in app content / CSS. All right, any Gulp experts out there? Is that going to work? You think? Should work, right? Okay, so if I go down here and look in my package, in my task runner, for some reason gulpfile.js says there's no tasks found. This threw me for a loop.
Just hit the little spinner button over there.
This one?
Yeah, refresh it.
Oh, look at that. Sometimes that works.
That's for it to refresh itself.
So if I run this, you can see it opens up this window, and in theory, if I hit refresh, it brought over Bootstrap theme and Bootstrap min.css. Thanks, Jim. I know, it's pretty amazing because it never worked at home. So there you go. So Gulp's pretty cool. It allows you to do some of this kind of like tasky type stuff. You can minify, you can concatenate, you can copy it across, and you can clean files, you can do all kinds of things. And you can create other tasks. So like if I created a Gulp task and I wanted this one to be copy the JavaScript files, I could put that in place. And then I could have another task called copy, and I think this is the syntax. Copy : CSS. So I pass in an array as the argument there, and now I'll have, and see it did update automatically, look at that. So now if I run copy, it'll run both copy CSS and copy JS. So you can kind of nest those, so you can have one that takes care of your JS. Yeah?
So is the idea behind this that you would want to set this up so that these tasks run every time you build your project, or is the the intent that you just run them like you're doing once in a while to...
So it's kind of up to you, but what I would do is, at this point now, if you, that's a good lead in. So if I right click on this, you'll see this bindings button. I can bind this to the Visual Studio build process. So I can say I want these tasks to run before build, after build. If I have a clean that goes through and cleans everything out, then maybe I want that to run anytime I do a clean solution or a clean project, or even on Project Open. So if I hit that, and if I delete these, not that one, but if I delete those out of there, and then if I hit build, right, it ran that as part of the build process, and of course you can't see it, but there they are. So that runs as part of the build process.
So are these part of the extensions that you installed, or are these baked into Visual Studio?
The new Task Runner Explorer is built into Visual Studio 2015. I don't know if the web extension pack helps connect those together somehow. In the new ASP.NET Core, all of this stuff's kind of already hooked up for us. But this is an older ASP.NET Web API 2.2 project, not .NET Core. And so I think there might be some special magic that the extensions are doing for us to hook that up. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I just wanted to just to add. You had asked. I don't know your name, but you had asked how often you want to run this. I think the true power in Gulp for me comes in mixing different tasks together. So there's one Gulp plugin or Gulp program that can run. It will watch a file. So you can have one thing watch your CSS files changes. So it'll trigger on a file change, and then say, have that hook to the compiler, and then have that one hook to something to reload your browser. So as I'm developing, you can write code, Control S, and instantly see your browser update on your second hardware. And so I think that the true power comes in when you're not running a task at a certain time, but when Gulp is perpetually running, and it's just watching your file system changes.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also in the new build process in TFS, you can connect a lot of these tasks and stuff. So if you've written some tasks that need to happen, and these things need to happen on the build servers as well, TFS will let you go in and select those. And I don't have time to show all that today, but if you talk to Dave Rookert, who's not here today, but he's kind of the master of the TFS domain. And you can run Gulp tasks, you can run NPM packages, tasks, all kinds of stuff like that through it as well as part of that build process. So there's some really good toolings that let us hook all that together. What else do we want to? Any questions? Anything that anybody else wants to look at real quickly? Because I might go in a different direction real quick, but. Anything? So there's some new task runners, I guess, if you will. I don't know what they're really called, but they're like Webpack. Anybody use Webpack yet? A couple people. What can you tell us about Webpack?
My experience with Webpack is that it takes some of the most basic boilerplate tasks that you would want to put in your build, and it bakes them in. So the setup for a good solid build is like within a screen, a page of config. It's very slick. It can also be fired as a Gulp task, which allows you the flexibility of using Gulp while still having the conciseness of Webpack. I'm sure there's a lot of more detailed benefits and drawbacks or whatever, but I really liked it.
So I don't know how to write a Webpack script yet. It's kind of new, and I keep asking the front end team to do a donuts presentation on it so I can learn it from them, but they keep telling me no. Jared keeps saying no. Why does he keep saying no, Matt? I don't know. he keeps saying no, to me. So I'll keep bugging him until he does. And so if all of you will bug him too, that'd be great. Say, hey, we really need a donuts on Webpack. But I know that one of the things that Webpack's used for, I've been playing a little around a little bit with React.js, and this new style of developing modular JavaScript, if you will. You compose lots of small files, JavaScript files, and then they're all kind of included inside of other JavaScript files as dependencies. And this dependency chain and tree can get pretty big. So can you imagine if you wanted to write a Gulp task to compile those things and assemble them into a single JavaScript file at the end of the day? That could get pretty nightmarish, because you want to make sure that they're included in the right order, and it gets kind of messy. Webpack, from what I've seen, is pretty smart, and it can peruse those files somehow. I don't know how it does it, but it can look inside of each of them and understand the dependency chain in a way that it knows how to build those things and pull them together. Is that fair? Yeah, and so that's coming as we start to write more modular JavaScript. So, okay, what else do we want to look at here? So those were the key things there. There's a couple of other extensions I wanted to look at real quickly. There's the bundler minifier. There's glyph-friend. Let's see if we can make glyph-friend work. Is there any chance? I don't know. We'll try it. So I have to, let's see, I want to bring in font awesome. Is there any chance that this will work? This is risky stuff here. I don't know if font awesome is available in Bower. Should be. There it is. Anybody use font awesome before? Yeah, all right, there's a couple people. All right, let's look under Bower now. See what we got. Oh, there's font awesome right there. So I'm going to cheat. I'm not going to add it to my Gulp task. I'm just going to drag it on here for now. So now that we have font awesome in here, in theory, that extension pack called glyph-friend should help me, but it doesn't. What did I have to do? I can't remember. Oh, I remember. This is a trick. If you use it, you have to have this included in the project for it to start recognizing it. And even then, I don't know, let's build it. Let's do a bunch of things to it. Let's poke it, let's prod it, let's do something so it'll show up here. Okay, it doesn't want to do that. I got it working last night. I can't remember what I did. Did I bring the min in? Maybe I'll include this one. Seriously. All right, well, I have to go back and look at the documentation. I can't remember what magic sprinkle dust that you're supposed to put on there, but what's really cool is it gives you IntelliSense there, and it shows you the little icons. It makes it really easy to bring that in. So let's put this icon up here where it belongs, right next to Tom, and see how that looks. Let's see if that even works. There it is, little tiny trash can. That's not big enough, is it? Tom. Do you think it is? I don't think so, Tom. That should do it. Yeah, it's better. You like that, Tom? Show you. I don't know why that IntelliSense isn't giving us more stuff here. That's really disappointing. But it's not working. I wonder if you have to turn it on or something. I don't know. We'll worry about that later. But it's pretty cool when it works. It gives you all of the little icons, and it works with like bootstraps, glyph icons, and there's some other packages that it works with as well. Okay, so forget that one. That one sucks. Okay. Image sprites is pretty cool too. I don't have I don't think I have anything in here that I can demonstrate it with, but if you had a folder of a bunch of little images, you can run that. You can just right click on that and it'll take a bunch of images and combine it together into a sprite sheet. So that improves performance on your website. It creates the CSS for you, it creates the compiled PNG for you, and you just use it. It's a really, really cool little tool. What's that? It'll create less and Sass versions of that as well, so it's pretty nice. Let's add an image folder here and let's bring some images in. Let's see, do I have any images of Tom? There's a bobblehead version. Well, yeah, there it is, right there. Tom, I knew I had an image of you. So we'll just drop those in there. Bring these in. So now it would let me create an image sprite, but before I do that, I just want to include this in the project. Let's look at Image Optimizer first. So Image Optimizer gives you a couple of options. You can create a lossless. So this basically is, anybody use Kraken.io to squeeze their images down? So Kraken.io is a pretty cool site, and there's others out there, but basically they'll take an image and they'll reduce the size. So we should look at these before we do this, huh? This would be a good idea. How big is this image of Tom here? 1,391K. So let's use the image optimizer, create a lossless optimized image. And if you look in your output, it'll tell you, I think it's the output. I don't know which one, is it under general? I don't know which one it works under. It's taking a while. It's probably because WebEx is running and it always slows it down. Or it's broken. That could be another reason. No, it's still working. So it does one other thing that's pretty cool. It'll base 64 encode it and let you copy it to the clipboard. So if you want to embed an image directly in your CSS as base 64 encoded, and you want to, it'll do that for you as well. And it's really super fast. It usually is, but today it's not, because that's how demos go. Yeah, it's awesome. Actually, if you read on there, he says that he used multiple cores at the same time, and he offloads it to do parallel processing on it, so it runs faster. And it really does. At home, I was using it when I wasn't running all the screen sharing and screen recording stuff, and it was pretty darn fast. It would offload it to all the cores, but I think I'm tying up all the cores with the stuff that I'm doing right now. So it could be. I don't know. Maybe it saw that it was Tom and it freaked out. I don't know. Tom, you broke it.
You need to get a developer piece.
Let's take a look at that. Yeah, Tom, it's spit an image. I don't understand. Okay. It's never going to finish, and I don't know how to stop it because it's running in a background thread. So this presentation's over. Just kidding. So creating the sprite sheet, I'll just do this real quick and see if it'll really choke it up. The sprite sheet also uses that same image optimizer when it creates it as well. So you don't have to actually compress it first before you run the sprite sheet. It'll do the compression for you. And this is going to be the world's worst sprite sheet. But see, it's done already. Let's open that up. See, Tom, you're huge. Okay. So, all right, that's a pretty cool one. All right, let's skip ahead. What else we got here? There's browser reload on save, browser sync. Those do what they say they do. They just, as you're working and you hit save, it'll sync it. I've noticed that this works better if you're not using IIS Express. If you're using full IIS, it seems to work better because it just, the web server is constantly running and you don't have to run into debug mode to make that work. Okay. All right. And one last thing before we close here. There was one more thing I wanted to talk about really quickly. And we just touched on all these subjects lightly, obviously. We don't have time to dig into a ton of it. Oh, there's one more snippet. Wait, one more snippet. Okay, so under Tom, I'm going to put a quote in here from Tom. I'm just going to right-click and say generate text. And we'll do it from the Raven, because that's kind of how Tom talks. And say 50 words, boom. So it'll just generate some sample text for me. It'll do lorem ipsum, it'll do a whole bunch of different ones. Let's see, what were these? Some of the other ones. You have, so there's lorem ipsum right there, which is obviously pretty popular, but you have a bunch of other ones. I don't even know what these things are. They're like, what are they? President Faust, yeah, quotes from President. I'm sure that's what Mads put together for us. All right. Some French. Okay, so enough of that. So there's some really cool extensions in there, and it makes Visual Studio development really fun to do. All right, I want to take a look at this real quickly. So a lot of us are trying to do single-page Angular apps, and I've seen this in some of the different projects around. How do you get that first index.html page to load up properly? And so I'll see a lot of people use like MVC just for that first page, and they'll put a razor.cshtml page for the initial page, and then everything else comes in. And the reason they do that is there's a couple of things that happen there. They want to be able to like invoke WAM, for instance, or I'm not exactly sure some of the reasons they do that. Session information, there's stuff like that they try to do. The other thing that the reason they do that, what was the other reason? Carlos, what's the other reason?
Well, I use bundler minifier from MVC.
Yeah, so bundler minifier. There's also, if you want to use HTML5 mode in Angular, for instance, that takes out the hash bang out of the routes, you get some really crazy things happen, right? So you'll have a route in Angular, you'll have a hash bang. If you want to get rid of all those, and you hit refresh, that sends a request back to the server that says, hey, I'm looking for this customer / this number. Gets to the server, and their server says, I have no route like that. What are you talking about? So it returns a 404, and it's a nightmare. And so people will try to use some MVC routing and some really fancy stuff to make all this work, and it's just crazy. Well, here's the answer. If you use URL rewrite, and this is for IIS, and this is a little bit different when you get to ASP.NET Core. They kind of handle that a little bit differently there. It makes it a little bit easier. But for ASP.NET Web API, this is basically what you want to do. You need to put an API rule in there that says you match on this URL. Anything that's API, or in my case, account, manage, Swagger, and whatnot, don't do this. But there's an Angular rule for everything else. And this, if you plug this rule in, basically it'll take care of that goofiness when you want to run an HTML5 mode. You can use just a plain index.html page with no razor in it, and everything just works hunky-dory. And you may not believe me, but I will show you a site that's working this way. It's WAM integrated. There we go, integration point, and this is the sneak peek at the new integration point that's coming. We're rebuilding it, and it automatically picked up my preferred name from WAM and loaded it in there. And there's no MVC, there's no CSHTML, no crazy magic going on. It just has that rule in the web.config file, and pure Angular in Web API. David. No. You have to watch the video. Just kidding. David. So there's the rule right there. There's one other thing. You'll notice down here in the handler section it says remove name equals webdav. There's a couple of people that ran into issues with Web API where they wanted to do delete. Yeah, if you try to do a delete, WebDAV, if it's running as a module, will intercept that delete and it won't make it to your Web API route. So you need to put that in there to get WebDAV out of the way. Just a little tip there.
So this also includes the HTML rewrite in the Angular app.js, right?
Mhm.
You have to put that in there and then put this rule in to the web config.
Yeah, you just put this in the web config, it will solve all your problems. It's magical. So it's pretty cool. All right, and we're about out of time. So any other questions out there? I hope there's been a few tips in here that have been useful and helpful. It's tough to get through a lot of this quickly and with very much depth. I think we're considering having a 3-hour stack training workshop where you'd get a chance to go in a lab format and play with some of these tools and build a sample project. And Jim's going to lead that, right? Yeah, he says, yeah. And so look for that. We may, if that's something you guys would be interested in, playing around with some of these new tools, we may even try to attempt ASP.NET Core and practice building projects in that. I think that's something that we're considering doing in the near future. So if there are no other questions, thank you guys. Jim's going to give away stuff.
Can I interject?
Yeah.